Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Resiliency Redefined. This episode is coming out as a request. So you might recall before I have shared that if you have any ideas or topics you would love me to explore or talk more about, I'm open. I want to make this useful for you. And I was asked recently if I could put out an episode for the holiday season. And they were asking if I could share some ideas and some tools and some tips on how to navigate the holidays. Now, I appreciate that the holidays for some people, is the most wonderful time of the year. Okay. Like I love that for some people, holidays, like they are all in, and that's brilliant. I hold space for you to just I celebrate that for you, that holidays are just full of all the good parts. That's amazing. I also hold space that for so many of us, holidays can be so complicated. There's big feelings, there's expectations, there's financial pieces. Like holidays for some people are just maybe even the most difficult season or the most difficult time of the year for them. So, what I just want to hold space for all of us in this conversation, wherever you find yourself in your experience with holidays, you are welcome to come as you are to this conversation. There isn't one that is right or better. There very well could be one that is lighter and there's more ease to it, but that doesn't mean that's better. It just means we all have these different experiences with the holidays, and not every holiday is the same for everyone. And I really encourage you to show yourself enormous amounts of compassion and patience as you try to stick handle holidays in whatever that means to you, whatever that looks like for you. To get us started on this conversation, and this is something that I find just kind of fascinating when we pause, is often holidays. And again, people celebrate different holidays, different things. My family happens to celebrate Christmas, and people always talk about how busy the Christmas season is. People talk about the hustle, the franticness, especially when you are the mama, because I believe that mothers in particular, tend to carry a lot of the invisible labor that is associated with holiday seasons. Where does the holiday magic come from? I argue that it's usually the mom. It is usually the mom that literally is holding all the pieces together. Now, that does not discount other people who are showing up and making holidays special for their families and meaningful for their families. But I do see, speaking to lots of different women, all different places and spaces, that women tend to carry a lot of the invisible labor of the holiday season. Okay. This is where I kind of have to pause when I started to think about this in a pretty significant way about the busyness and the expectations and the pressures. And in this case, let's talk about for the moms who are creating holiday. I love what it feels like to chase my tail. Okay, what did I just say? As our buddy Alan Stein Jr. would say, it's so important. I'll say it twice. I love the feeling of being wildly busy. Okay, now that's different than the everyday busy or fullness of my professional life. That's a different fullness. There's something about planning, organizing, bopping about, shopping, decorating, all this movement. There's actually a part of me that really, really loves it until I don't. Okay, so I love the busyness, the hustle, all of the noise, the activity. I love making things special for the people I care about the most. And you know what? I actually look forward to a little bit of that frantic energy that's with the holidays, the pressure of trying to get it all done, fit it all in. I love it until then I don't. And then when I don't love it, I really don't love it. So I think sometimes when people are like, oh, we got to take the stress out of the holiday season. Oh, we have to take, all of this kind of commercialism out of the holiday season. You know what? For some of us, we like it. I love, and if you happen to listen to my podcast with Peter Katz, I recounted a very fun story about wanting to get these 6 foot tall nutcracker decorations for our front porch at our house, and like how amazing it was that I was able to like, kind of invite my husband into this experience. And as he was putting these like 200-pound nutcrackers on this massive pallets at Costco, he's putting them on it, looking at me with a smile on his face and saying, girl, these won't fit in your car. I just need you to know these will not fit in. And I said, Jeff, I know that, but that's why you're here, because Jeff is my maker. He just always makes things work. He's the fixer. He's the person who I can go to with any situation and he will help me find a way through. So, you know what? I love the adventure of buying 2 ginormous nutcrackers because I want that moment for when, Hunter comes home from uni and he pulls into the driveway. Of course, he's going to see these 6 foot nutcrackers at the front door welcoming him, because you know what? I love to collect precious moments. And having that for my kids is a precious moment. I love it. And yes, for those who are wondering, for me to full circle that story, Jeff was able to take them out of the boxes in the parking lot at Costco, like took them out of the styrofoam, took them out of the packaging, and he was able to like Tetris his way into fitting those ginormous nutcrackers into the vehicle for me. Which again, I love those parts of Christmas. Right. I love that. I love the bustle, the imagination, the creativity. I also love the routines, the memories, those kind of traditions. There's some of them that I really, really love until I don't. And I think that if you're a little bit like me, I think that's the way for many of us, right? There's parts of it we love, and there's parts that are really exhausting. So the first invitation is to recognize, what parts do you love? What parts do you enjoy? Maybe you love making those lists. Maybe you love having like busy work that isn't your everyday work. There's a novelty, a fondness also that gets activated when we start to think about traditions. So recognize, you know what, there's part of it that maybe you really do enjoy. And ensuring that the parts that you do enjoy get to happen by making sure that we have some good guardrails around the things that don't bring us joy, that things that we don't enjoy doing. So even simply recognizing, perhaps there's some obligatory pieces that you have to throw into your holiday, right? Things that you really don't want to do, but you do it anyway, because apparently there's this like moral scorecard somewhere out there when they're going to say, oh, look, she did that even though she didn't want to. That's one less day in purgatory for her. I don't actually think that's how it works, but there's some moral scorecard, I think, going out there, which means we send things and do things with people because we feel like we have to, not necessarily we're being motivated because we think that this is the right thing to do. So, yeah, I get that there's some obligation sometimes in the holiday. Now, it doesn't say we don't do those things, because there's likely a reason that you are doing them, but just recognize it for what it is. Okay. That thing that you're doing that you have to do, chances are that doesn't feel good. And maybe give yourself permission to like let yourself know that it's not supposed to feel good. We're just doing it to check that thing off the list, whatever that might be. It could be visiting certain family members. It could be, holding space for things that you don't necessarily love or agree with. But at the end of the day, if it matters to some other people, you know what? We can have a bad hour or a not great hour during a holiday experience. It's not going to make or break the experience for you and your family. So recognizing where you get joy for real, like real, real joy, and then just being able to acknowledge that there's going to be some stuff that we don't love, but that doesn't have to like overshadow the whole experience. Okay. Because one like dirty look over a Christmas table could, like, if you're not careful, you can let that one irritant rob you of your joy. You can let it rob you of all of your hard work, all of your planning, all of your memory making, if you are not careful about managing some of those guardrails. Okay. So that's that kind of second idea, right? I want you to know what works for you, know what doesn't work for you, or maybe not what your favorite, and just like hold space for it, maybe just to like suck for an hour or 3 hours or whatever it is. We just want to make sure that like the ledger, we don't have too many of those things and not enough things that are done for the right reasons that make you feel important or your needs are being met or things that matter most to you. Okay. So we want to make sure our ledgers are relatively balanced in our favor of what make things special. Now, the other idea I want to share with you is this notion of like, trying to meet other people's expectations. So I love this sign that I see every once in a while, like that comes across my social media feed where it says, get the tattoo, your family is disappointed in you anyway. Now, why I love that isn't because I think our families are disappointed in us if we get tattoos. I love it because for me, what it gives us pause for is like people are going to talk anyway, whether for you or against you. You know what you do, like there's going to be some people that you'll never be able to satisfy. Like there's some people, as my friend Stu likes to say, live to be outraged, which means just do your thing because you know what? Those people, they need a villain in their story. And you know what? I have been the villain in many people's stories. And before, I was like so driven to try and like rewrite that narrative, right? To be like, no, 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 I'm not a bad person. Of course, I'm not a bad person. Or no, 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 like you don't understand. You don't have all the information. Like there's things that you might not know about. And I tried to like fix this perception of my reputation. But instead, the gift of being a 45-year-old woman who is feeling pretty well resourced and pretty steady is I'm okay being the villain in some people's story. And you know what? That's fine. That is what they need. Like really great stories has a villain. And if you get to be a villain, you clearly are living your best life or you are doing you because you're not conforming to their expectations of what you do or what you're all about. Okay. So if you are like me and you might be a villain in a few people's Christmas stories, you know what? Every great story has a villain. And I don't think our villains get enough attention. So you know what? You're good. You're not alone. We don't have to fix that. And the reality is, you probably can't. And a way that we practice resiliency in holiday seasons is that might be something you can let go. It's something that you can release because you're fine and lean into the things that matter most, to the people that matter most, and just recognize, be like, oh, okay, you know what? For them, this is how it works. Fine. I'm not going to get into the ring. I'm not going to fight this. Instead, again, just give them more things to talk about. Okay, so we have this kind of notion of obligation, some things that we have to do. I appreciate that. And again, we just want to make sure that it's not too skewed into the point of other people's expectations. Now, the other little piece I encourage you to think about is this notion of like in the Christmas tradition, there's a lot of gift giving. And I don't know if you've seen some of these like teenager like Christmas lists recently. They're mortgage payments. Let's be honest. Like when they were little, you can like fill up the tree, hopefully, if that was available to you, with so many little parcels and little kind of things where when they're teenagers, like their stuff is expensive. So again, I think expectation setting is extremely important. And when we look back on where do we get the best engagement, the best return on our investment, in my opinion, it's actually through experiences. Creating experiences with those loved ones, to me, that is going to create the memories of what we're trying to foster, what we're trying to facilitate, a memorable moment. So, not to get caught up in this, my worth as a parent or my love for my child is indicative of what is under the tree. I encourage you to think about experiences. What are things that I can do? Which might mean maybe you pick up another controller for yourself and you play that video game with your kid, right? Like show up where they are in their world in terms of what are the things that they enjoy doing and see if there's a place for you to be their wingman, be their person who tags along for them to do the things that they really love to do. The other invitation for you, especially for our teenagers, they love, first of all, hearing stories about themselves about when they were little. Okay. So being their knowledge holder and sharing stories and traditions give teenagers a chance to like revisit and play in their childhood again. So, go sledding if that's available. Like make the cookies, tell them, hey, this was your favorite Christmas show we used to watch when you were little. watch them again with them. Like actually activate those feelings of fondness and engagement. And those are the things that they really, really remember. Those are the things that really create that sense of fondness and that routine or that ritual. The other kind of idea I can encourage you to think about is, especially when we think about, all of the fullness and the busyness of like having to move through time and space. I know some people shared with me that they don't know how to stick handle that. You need to do right for your family first and foremost, which means it's the people who are immediately around you. You have to make sure that you're looking after them first. So, for example, I was just talking to a friend. She just had a new little baby, and she shared with me the expectations of all of the in laws and the outlaws in terms of they were supposed to be in all these different places and spaces. And I shared with her, your mom. You have final decision making when it comes to what your Christmas morning is going to look like. And if you hold the line and say, like, hey, this is what makes sense for my baby, this is what makes sense for my family, we can find other ways to have little visits and whatnot. And anyone who pushes against your boundary and says things like, that's really selfish. We want to see the grandbaby. It's our first Christmas too as grandparents. They're the only people who will take offense to your boundaries are the people who want to walk all over them. Other people in your life who honor boundaries are going to cheer you on. They're going to be like, yeah, you set up those guardrails. Only the people that are trying to like take advantage or push their agenda are going to have some opposition to your boundaries. And you know what? That's not okay. Guilt should not be the gasoline fueling families, as far as I'm concerned. And if somebody is using guilt as a way of like gasolining your family, my invitation for you is they might need to get relegated from family to relative status. Now, I don't tell people who are in my relegated category of relative versus family, but something that I know is my family would honor and respect the needs and the wishes of my kids. And anyone who's pushing against you on that, those are relatives, which means that you get to be on the other side of this guardrail. You don't get to be on this side of it because the people on this side are going to want you to be healthy and well and okay. So again, sometimes even just being able to, and again, please don't, relegate them in front of them and be like, you are now relegated to a relative versus family because family wouldn't make me feel guilty for this. Not super helpful. But what happens for us is like seeing is relieving. Okay, just seeing it is relieving. So once we're able to say, okay, that's a relative status, it creates not as much tension and friction. And are you going to upset people? 100% you are. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay because what matters most is you're standing up for you and your family, and your emotional health matters more than appeasing someone else. Now, that doesn't mean we're like, hey, you know what? There's a, 14-day blackout period where you can't be affiliated with anything to do. Like, we want to be reasonable and we want to make sure that we're okay in the process. Okay. A couple other ideas. I hope this is useful. I hope this is helpful. Is the idea about understanding the feelings and behind seasons, and especially these ideas that there's like a lot of grief for many of us. And grief rewrites us. Grief is an emotion that permanently changes our psychology, and I would argue even our physiology. And to hold space to recognize that there's probably going to be some windows of moments within your holidays where grief is going to feel a little bit extra heavy. And that's okay. It's okay to have to pull back a wee bit and say, you know what? I notice this big wave of grief is touching the edges right now. And my invitation for you when that big wave of grief comes in is to just put your hand on your heart. Just put your hand on your heart and say, like, I see you. I feel this. It's okay. Because you know what? It would be way better if she was here. This would be a different experience if she was here or if they were here. So think of them, hold them close, bring them into the moments where you can. And for you, perhaps it's too recent or it's too big, it's too heavy. There's no shame in ignoring and overriding sometimes, where you're just like, you know what, I can't even go there. And again, give yourself permission to feel the feels. We just don't want them to crush us. So putting in a few little pillars that we know, you know what, the grief is likely going to come and I'm just going to make some space for it. because that's what we do. Another little gentle piece, because for me, my big grief window is I lost my mother a week before Christmas. So I find that season always complicated. One of the things that how I help myself show up in it is I do things that I know she would have done, right? I show up in a way where how my mom would have shown up for my kids, especially. And I just hold her extra close for this season. I hold her close always, but this is when sometimes I just lean in and ask her to ask her to look after me too. Especially when you are a daughter who doesn't have her mother, there isn't anyone who can look after you the way that she used to. And I don't put the pressure on the people in my world to try and meet a need that only she was able to meet. So instead, I still foster and cultivate that connection of asking her for a little bit of support that day too. And you might think that's woo. I think it's very important, and I do believe that sometimes our relationships with people who are no longer with us are very strong, and they can still have a place and a space in our lives, offering us assurance, offering us guidance, and meeting some of those needs. So grief might be part of it, and we make space for it. We hold room for it, and that is okay. Okay, the last little idea I'll share with you. I have so many Christmas stories about the kids that I could tell you about. Oh my goodness. But one of my little favorites, I remember when the kids were growing up. I was a single parent and I was trying to make Christmas magical because, of course, the last thing I wanted was to write off their childhood because I couldn't pull off one perfect morning. And I had this little piece of advice that I stumbled on where somebody said to me when I was trying to manage gifts and with the kids, someone shared with me, they said, "Hey, Robyne, like, let's keep this in perspective. Little baby Jesus got 3 presents from the wise men. Okay. That's part of Catholic tradition, Christian tradition, in our scripture that baby Jesus got 3 presents. And I thought, you know what? If baby Jesus got 3, those are really nice guardrails that I will put around for my family that they will each get 3 Christmas parcels. Plus, the little asterisk is that they also get Christmas Eve pajamas. Okay, so that doesn't count as one of the 3, and nor does the stocking. Okay, but it was 3 parcels. And I shared this, I remember driving home, picked up the kids from daycare and school, and I was driving home and I said, hey, I have this new practice I've learned about. It's honoring the real reason for the season, keeping Christ in Christmas. I'm going to bring 3 parcels. You're going to get 3 parcels from me because little baby Jesus got 3 parcels. And I thought I figured this out. Oh my goodness. Yes. And there's also the Santa present. So you can see I have found loopholes in this practice, but at least there's some parameters. And I remember Hunter in his car seat turning to Ava, who was in her rear facing car seat. So they could like have these like little conversations. And he said to Ava, he's like, don't worry, sister. One of them was gold. Oh, Hunter, don't worry, sister. One of them was gold. All right. So every year when I still collect 3 presents or pick up 3 presents or experiences for my kids, I always do have a little chuckle that, yes, one of them was supposed to be gold. Anyway, for those who are still listening, thank you for listening. I do hope there was like one useful little piece of information in there for you that might maybe soften the edges if Christmas is a wee bit challenging for you. And if Christmas is like the best time ever for you, my gentle invitation is please be patient and just really gentle with us who have a very mixed relationship with the holiday season. So if this is your thing, I celebrate you. Do not dim those Christmas lights for other people. And please be patient with us because I promise you, we are doing the best we can with a lot of big feelings. And we celebrate you and we want to be part of it. We want to be included. It might just look different. So to each and every one of you, I do hope this was useful. If it was, please let me know. If there's anything you want to learn more about, please, please, please reach out. There's my little Sabrina Carpenter moment again. I hope she's doing okay. I heard she's going through it. He made poor choices. Back on task. My friends, I wish you merry everything. I'm cheering for you. And I thank you for spending time with me today. Take good care and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.